Welcome back to Life Lanes, Brotherly Guide. We're your hosts, Justin and Dom Mazza. On today's episode, we're taking a little different spin on the podcast. We are talking about the current El Salvador president, Nayib Bukele. He recently won the re-election of 2024 in February, so this is brand new stuff. This is pretty unique to a specific reason that we'll get into later, but we're going to discuss his rise to power, his stance on crime, and how his influence might influence other nations to follow suit. We're going to get into a bunch more topics as well. So let's first introduce who Nayib Bukele is. So, he's a young guy. He's from El Salvador. He started off as the mayor of a small town from 2012 to 2015 called Nuevo Cuscalan. At that time, he was 30 years old. He rapidly improved the town on education by enacting a plan to remove illiteracy. He also aimed to reduce homicide rate, with some sources saying that he only saw one homicide in his 3 years as mayor. At the end of 2012, the town opened its first 24-hour medical clinic. And then there was also a multi-million-dollar water project to make drinking water available for 24 hours a day. And prior to him getting in office, it was only on for 3 hours a day. So he was kind of a big deal in this small town. He was this young guy. He did consulting prior to it as well. And he really pioneered using YouTube as a platform to promote his message. He has like a huge YouTube channel, huge Twitter presence. So he gained a lot of notoriety for how he conducted business in this small town, basically. Fast forward, he then decided to run for mayor of San Salvador, which is the capital. And in El Salvador, the mayoral terms as well as the presidential terms are 3 years, and that'll come back as well. So now we're 2015 to 2018. So he wins the mayoral race of 2015. He took a similar approach to San Salvador as he did with Nuevo Cuscalan. While he's the mayor, San Salvador was going really well. Everything kind of was going according to plan. However, the country homicide rates more than doubled. They think it was due to a failing truce between two major gangs, but they're not sure why the homicide rates doubled. But at this point, they were seeing 103 per 100,000 homicides per day, which ranked as the number one in the world at that time. Incarceration also jumped up to 579 per 100,000, which ranked third in the world behind Turkmenistan and USA, unfortunately. So really, the country was a mess. San Salvador was doing good, but too many people were dying and too many people were being wrongfully incarcerated. El Salvador has two major political party systems similar to the United States. They were the FMLN, which Bukele was a part of prior, and then the Arena Party. So while he was campaigning, though, he strayed away from the FMLN due to different political ideologies, whatever. He strayed away from the FMLN in 2017, and then it was kind of going to be because he didn't want to make a presidential run in 2019 after his mayor candidate. So he was kind of screwing himself because he wasn't aligned with the political party anymore. He did join up with a third political party called the Ghana, or just Ghana, Gana, and they were able to successfully make a presidential candidate. So he beat out the FMLN and the Arena parties as well. I found some interesting similarities with his presidential candidacy because one of his biggest things was that he wanted to, quote unquote, gut the current political system. And this just kind of reminded me of what Trump's main idea was to drain the swamp. Yeah, exactly. That was and I don't know when was Trump running? That was
2015 for the 2016 election.
Okay. So I wonder if Bukele kind of got some ideas from him. Regardless, we can discuss the similarities at the end, but so he promises to gut the current political system. He wins the presidential election of 2019 with 53% of the popular vote, beating out the Arena one, which had only 31%. So he won pretty handedly. So now he is this young hotshot. I think he's 34 at this time. He's the president now of El Salvador, and he wanted to get things going real quick. So he had a 6-phase plan called the Territorial Control Plan, which his main goal was to clean up violence. As you could, as we previously went over, El Salvador was ravaged with homicide at this time, so that was his main goal. So the first phase was called Preparation, which really just comprised of police intervention into 12 of the most dangerous communities. Along this, he also forbade visitations to prisoners with the intention of cutting off communications between imprisoned gang leaders and the gang members on the street. Really, the intent was to fracture gang structure. Second phase was called Opportunity, which included a $91 million loan from the Central American Bank for economic integration to invest in the community. So at this time, he built skate parks, community centers, schools. Really, he was just trying to give young kids an outlet to do other than joining gangs. Third phase caught a bit of a roadblock. So this one was called Modernization. So again, he wanted to take out this large loan from that same Central American bank. This time he wanted $109 million worth of equipment to give to his national security. Basically, he wanted to fight an all-out war against these gangs. The roadblock was that the country's legislation didn't have any representatives from his party. So the legislation, that election took place 1 year prior to Bukele coming into office, so he didn't really have a chance to influence any of those members. There was like this huge, basically standstill of like he wanted to do this shit. The legislation was like, no, we don't want you to do it, yada, 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 going back and forth. He then called this emergency legislative session, which was this huge thing because like no one's really ever done it before. So he used his social media to promote this thing where he had like this huge, like swath of people come and basically threatened to overthrow the government if the legislation did not attend, which there was talks that they weren't going to attend. Only 20 out of the 84 party members showed up, and Bukele was pissed. So there was like a whole bunch thing about like his lockdown policy and the judiciary stuff. I'm not really going to cover that with COVID, but it doesn't really aid into what we're going to be talking about today. So fast forward now to 2021. So he has the executive branch, and they have a similar system where there's the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. So he is the executive branch, and now the legislative election's coming up in 2021. At this time, he's formed his new party look called the Nuevas Ideas. Great name. And they won this legislative seat majority by a landslide. So now they control 56 out of the 84 seats. So now Bukele has the executive branch and the legislative branch, which makes enacting policies a lot easier. At this point, I do want to mention that although he's, seemingly just taking control over everything really easily, his nationwide popularity was about 90% at this time, which ranked him among the highest in the world. So all of the El Salvador people really loved what he was doing, and just because he was like making it much cleaner and much safer for people. So now that he had those two branches, his next site was the judiciary branch, which actually was really easy since he had the legislative branch. He just basically dismissed the 5 previous judges and then enacted 5 of his own judges. Let's go back real quick to those other 3 phases of his plan. These kind of get like glossed over because they kind of blend into the other ones. So the 4th phase is called Incursion, which consisted of the country's security forces directly entering territories with heavy gang influence when security forces previously found difficult to enter or patrol. So it seems like it's like an extension of that first policy. The 5th policy also is an extension. It's called Extraction. So it's just surrounding large cities and extracting the terrorists who were hiding in the communities. And then the 6th phase, which is kind of like this ongoing phase, is called Integration, which includes a $30 million budget. And from my research, it's saying that it was focused on short and long-term needs of the country. So it's kind of vague, but they did include like employment focus, improving training programs, generating programs to reduce poverty. So just kind of bringing everybody up. Why Bukele is so popular right now is his stance on crime. So again, when he was coming up in the ranks, one of his main things was to make El Salvador safe. So there was this time, the weekend of March 25th of 2023, where El Salvador saw 87 random murders just occur. So they don't know why this occurred. They think it was maybe due to a breakdown of truce between gangs and the government. But basically, people were just getting shot left and right. Again, Bukele was pissed. And then he started this 30-day state of exemption disposing constitutional rights. So police could do whatever they want. It was search and seize. They didn't really have any constitutional rights, these people. This led to mass arbitrary detention, and we'll get into that detention center in one moment. I found it interesting, though, that this state of exception kept getting renewed, and it's been renewed now 12 times. And from what I can research, it's still going on. So it was originally designed to be 30 days, but it's still going on.
But that just gives power to the police.
Yeah,
like as far as okay.
yeah, exactly. Like they don't need to read you any rights. Like they can just do whatever they want. The police and Bukele.
Mm-hmm. And Bukele.
Yeah, so Bukele is enacting these policies, and basically they were just arresting anybody who they thought might have ties to gangs. And this brings in a lot of like controversy because there's like a lot of racism, right? And then people just getting targeted because like they have tattoos or like they hang out in like a certain area. This plays into this new detention center that opened for business in 2023 called CCOT, which is defined as this new terrorism confinement center. So it could hold up to 40,000 inmates, which makes it the largest prison in the world. He also went to YouTube and did a lot of promotion for this, of like how the military is using these facilities and yada, 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 things like that. What's interesting though is that all of these like really harsh policies and him like coming to power and like taking over the executive, the legislative, and judicial branch uh really work to decrease homicides. Like they have plenty of graphs documenting how safe El Salvador is compared to what it was 10 years ago. So again, the people love him. Fast forward now to 2024. So what you got pulled up here real quick,
Well,
Dean?
this is just it's him himself tweeting what you just
Oh.
said. So I just want to pull it up.
Yeah. So again, he's big in social media, big into that. But we fast forward to now to this re-election of February 2024, and how I was saying previously is that the mayor candidates and the president and the legislative, it was running in 3-year terms. Now El Salvador also had this clause where a president could not run for 2 consecutive terms, so they had to take a gap term basically. Once he got control of all 3 branches, he did away with that. So he ran again. He won in a landslide. This is now, I think, February. Yeah, right at the beginning of February 2024. I think he won like 85% of the popular vote, or like something like that.
90%.
What was that? 90%. Yeah. So he's freshly in power. I was trying to look to see like what his plans are for the immediate future, and I wasn't really getting, some of that. I mean, I'm not a journalist, so it's hard for me to get insider access to this. But he did recently speak at this CPAC, which is a conservative political action conference. So this took place in Washington. I think it happened like yesterday or like a couple days ago, or
yeah, it's all over his Twitter. He's just retweeting everything.
It's pretty quick.
I think it was it ended yesterday, but I think it went from like Thursday to today. Or Thursday to yesterday.
He speaks English very well. But during this talk, he was talking about how the United States is too weak on crime and drugs, and he was bringing all these examples. And this is one of the topics that I want to discuss with you, Justin, about his influence and how other leaders might follow suit. El Salvador is a much smaller country compared to the United States and other nations like that. So I wonder, magnifying it, how that would work. I also found it interesting that he was just like clowning on the mismanagement of government funds. He brought up all this stuff about like how, and I don't know the validity of this, how the government is not funded by taxes, but is instead funded by treasury bonds that are printed by the Fed. And he was like, the only reason that the United States has taxes is so people feel like they're actually contributing to their government. Meanwhile, they're not. Then there's this whole talk about George Soros. He really hates George Soros. And the audience was screaming out Nancy Pelosi's bitch. So not sure how that was going to roll over. But, he's gaining a lot of popularity in the United States, I think, because he's like this young hotshot who speaks English well and is appealing to the masses. But yeah, that's kind of how the rise of Bukele, a very summarized version of it, but from 2012 to now. And I'm curious, what it's going to be looking like in the future. Justin, before we get into some of these discussion points, now that you have heard this info and I know you've done your own research before, what kind of sticks out to you about Bukele and anything about his rise to power?
Yeah, that's a good summary, Dom. Thanks. I in researching and kind of just learning about this, I mean, you're the one who brought up the topic, and then I went on super deep dives over the last few days of just like, I learned a lot about, I think, the country and the Civil War that happened. And I think that was an interesting piece where um, what helped his rise to power on the presidency was his opponents were like old dudes from the Civil War from both
Right.
sides, which
Right.
was very interesting to me because we have a presidential election this year with two super old dudes as well. And, you know, it's like, I just think about the older you are, maybe the more detached you are from the population of the country, right? That you're looking to run,
Mm-hmm.
especially with just where the ages are and, you know, just from a U.S. perspective. But that was an interesting piece. Just like he was 7 when he was first elected, I think, or 30.
So he was 30 in 2012. So
Yeah.
he came to president power in 2019. So yeah, 37. Yeah.
Yes, 37. You can't even run for presidency at 37 in the U.S.
Right.
I think
Yes, you can. Yeah, yes, you
I thought it
can.
was
think it's
45.
35.
No, it has to be 40. That's it?
Let's get a fact check.
Yeah.
We're gonna fact check the history teacher.
Yeah. Are we
I'm gonna fact check.
No, I'm pulling it up.
It is 35 years old.
wow.
That's the whole argument right now. There's a lot of arguing over how they're not putting a limit on like how old
The
you can
top
be,
age,
but there's a
yeah.
limit how young you can be, which I think 35 is a fair age.
That's pretty young. That's younger than I thought, to be honest.
Yeah, I think at 35 though you're like biologically fully matured for the most part. I mean,
I feel
you
like
should
it would
biologically
be
fully matured.
hard for a 35-year-old to just to even have that name, you know,
Yeah,
to
the
even
recognition.
ascend to the, you know, primaries.
You'd have to do
unless-
so much early in your political career to get
Yeah.
the name.
Or like maybe they were like a I don't know, CEO at like 21 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting.
The only young presidents outside of Obama, who was pretty young, have come from like the two biggest political families in American history.
Yeah.
Do you know
Andrew
who they are?
Yeah, Roosevelt and Kennedy. Oh.
Yeah, because RFK Jr. is on the ballot, independent. He's all over my TikTok.
He's forming his own party.
Yeah.
What's it called?
It worked for this guy.
What's his party called?
I forget. I don't know if he. I can't remember if he
Old
named it or not.
Ideas.
He's a funny dude. I like listening to him.
Bobby Kennedy. No, not Bobby Kennedy. Joe Kennedy was a major guy. He's
You're talking about the dad, right?
No, he's young. I think he's RFK's grandson.
Well, RFK Jr. is the one running right now.
He's a ginger.
Ooh.
All right, Joe Kennedy the third. He is.
Oh yeah, he looks like he needs like lip chapstick all the time.
It looks like he went to Chaminade. Who? He's the son. He's the grandson of U.S. Attorney RFK, and the grandnephew of U.S. President John F. Kennedy.
So there you go. Yeah.
How's he related to the other RFK?
Well, the original RFK, like RFK,
Yeah.
or the RFK Jr. now.
Oh, yeah. Which RFK are they talking about?
It's RFK Jr.
They're talking about Robert F. Kennedy, who's JFK's brother, who was the Attorney General who got assassinated when he was running for president.
I know, but how? Like when they're talking about Joe Kennedy, redhead. I think he's the third. That's why the third. There we go. He's the special envoy to Northern Ireland. It seems like the most redundant position.
Dude, Wikipedia's of RFK Jr. Environmental lawyer, activist who promotes anti-vaccine misinformation and public health conspiracy theories.
Tough.
Damn.
He's the. So how is Joe Kennedy III related to this current RFK?
It was his great uncle, I think, or his uncle.
Oh yeah, just like his uncle. Okay.
Well,
regardless.
Yeah, I think Dom. One of my biggest takeaways was a guy.
RFK Jr. is not young. He's 70.
He's 70. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't say he was young.
Everyone's no, I know. Old. I'm just like he's jacked.
We need fucking Yang Gang back.
Andrew
maybe
Yang.
maybe he's coming. What were you saying, Justin?
No, just something. A takeaway I had was, they're a two-party system, like much of my awareness to politics, and he basically didn't agree with. And I don't know what went on behind closed doors, obviously, but like he just created his own party, and it worked really, really well. And it's super interesting how a traditional two-party system, you go basically independent because you disagree with your party, and then this just meteoric rise to power happened, which is so cool. So I in a couple of videos I watched, I found myself rooting from him early, and then as he got more and more power, I'm like, ooh, is this good or not? Like, then questioning all the power consolidation.
Yeah. And, we briefly chatted about that today, how, the idea of one party controlling the executive branch and then seemingly the other party controlling the House, how it feels like nothing ever gets done, right? And it was supposed to be for this system of checks and balances so no party could get too powerful. But again, as a result, just time fucking goes by and nothing gets done. So we were throwing out ideas for potential solutions. Dean, what do you think about these? You ready?
I don't
So
know
the
if I am.
first idea is a 6-year presidential term.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
We also thought about having that you could run for a third presidential term, or if there was 6 years that you could do 2. So basically 12 years. So that's on the docket. I also thought about the idea of if one party wins the presidential race, that they would have total control over all branches to eliminate that kind of standstill that seems to happen a lot. Now, if that was the case, it would need to be definitely more than 4 years, just because I feel like 1 to 2 years is either getting rid of old policies or fixing up what you think needs to be fixed up from the last presidential election. So it'd be interesting to give like a party 6 years to do whatever they want. Yeah, I'd be curious to see. It'd be fun if you could like do these in like a simulation.
I think that the 6-year term has been brought up a lot. Did you research the other one? What's the benefit of it? Well,
no. What's like the traction behind it? Like, is it being talked about seriously, or?
It's been talked about seriously. I don't think I mean, it's definitely possible to change it. They had the amendment put in place after FDR to limit it to 2 terms in the first place. But again, the argument for it is like right now Biden's at the end of his first term, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's essentially going to spend his entire 4th year worrying about a reelection. Right. Really more than a year. Like this election's been kind of like brewing for the past 7 months now. So really like the last year and a half of his term is going to be focusing and answering questions about the election. So if you eliminate that, you're taking away that just year and a half. Plus the back end of the second term is typically like they're a lame duck. So that year and a half is usually figuring out a successor in the party.
Yeah. So it really doesn't give you much room to operate.
I'd be more for a 6-year term than a 12-year term. I think 12 years is too long.
Well, yeah, I think a 12-year term would be too long as well.
Sorry, not 12-year term. Being able to run for a third term, like you said.
Oh.
I think 12 years of one president's a lot.
I mean, if the people want him, though.
That's my point. Like with this side, his approval rating is so high.
Yeah,
but the country was so bad. Like it was in such a bad shape.
So like, if he's done such a good job over 5 years,
I'll look it up. I'm going to look up FDR's approval rating during the Great Depression real quick. So I think that's a good comparison.
Tough time to be a president.
Yeah, but like if some savior like Marcus Aurelius, the 2024 version of him, comes along, he's like in his 40s, like fuck yeah, I want that dude president for 30 years. Let's get an empire going.
So at Roosevelt's peak, he was at sorry, this is during the war. So take it how you will, but I think it's a good comparison because El Salvador was practically in a war. He was at like high 70s, 80s, and he touched like 90 in a couple polls.
It's pretty good.
Where do you even vote for these presidential approval ratings?
It's like Gallup and different things. Like
there's surveys,
but it's not like when you actually go look to see how many people took the survey.
Vote.
It's not a lot.
Yeah.
So if you pay attention, pay attention during the news, and every time they put up a survey, they have to put like if you're watching the news or on a website, they have to put the amount of people who voted. So it'd be like 75% of people think Biden is senile, and then below it says compiled by 10 voters.
Right.
That's obviously an exaggeration, but sometimes it'll be crazy. Sometimes they'll take polls from 6 years ago and plug it into things that are relevant today. So you always have to be careful with that.
Yeah, sneaky, let's go back to the idea of youth and power. Just because I feel, we're all big sports guys over here, and this is kind of a trend that I've seen with the NFL coaches as well, where they're electing to go for younger coordinators, really.
I think
instead
GMs
of like
even
old.
too, Dom.
Yeah, GMs
just all
as
of
well.
Management, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like every year it's like, oh, like the youngest like coach ever. Well, I think Sean McVay though was like 30 when he like started. So
I think that's who started that. Like, to me, at least in recent memory, that's who started kind of that trend. He comes in, he wins early on, and then obviously like his coaching tree has been awesome. But it's just like, I think that's why Bill Belichick wasn't hired. He's a 70-year-old guy. How do you connect with 21-year-olds?
I think he turned down jobs though.
Did he? I know he was turned down from a couple jobs. I think it was with the Atlanta job.
So yeah, then I found out that he turned that down. There's like conflicting reports.
I'll never know, right?
We'll never know. Pete Carroll like went into like front office in Seattle. I didn't realize that. But I think Justin, you brought up a good point previously with the older generation, and with the younger generation, it's like, I'm trying to make this country better for my grandkids, right? Who are obviously not born yet, but like, if you're like not going to be alive in 20 years, like, do you really care what the country looks like in like 30 years? Unless it's for like your legacy. But I feel like we're often so negative in our mindsets when we recap on political leaders that we really just think about like the bad things that happened during their term, and we think about all the ways that it could have been improved.
Yeah I mean, so just to be clear, Dom, he's going, he just got elected for his second 5-year term, right? Or 5-year term,
3-year terms.
I thought it was 5.
Dom, as a doctor, so we're talking about the age thing. As a doctor, when typically do people begin to like lose cognitive decline and motor skills?
I would say it varies, person to person, obviously, and it really depends. But definitely, like, by 50, you start to see a decrease in it. And I mean, late onset Alzheimer's, right? When you think of that term is referring to Alzheimer's that sets in after 65 years old, right? So that's late onset. So then you have like early onset, which is, I guess, before 65. So, but then you look at my dad's hospital where they have multiple 80-year-old doctors there who are still very sharp. So, I think it's a case-by-case basis, but you have to like evaluate it actually, Okay, it's a 5-year term.
5-year terms, yeah.
I think I was just leading into the discussion, which I think you kind of have here in the notes, is should there be some sort of amendment for age limits for politicians?
Yeah, I mean, that amendment thing came from Justin and I just having a conversation earlier today about how, and I don't know how often things do get amended.
Yeah, but Tyler, we were just talking about like there's a point in the El Salvadorian Constitution that basically says he shouldn't be running again, right? And he's the one who disagrees with it. It's kind of a vague piece of their constitution. I don't know when it was written, but we were just talking about like just constitutions in general. They're written so long ago, and we just compared ours, right? Whatever it is, and yet people are so hesitant sometimes to revisit it and question it and update it. So that's kind of where the conversation was going. Like I brought up the whole right to bear arms thing, and I mean it's just there's so much that's in there that just doesn't make sense anymore. I think Dom, you said there's like something about slavery in there as well. And,
well, I think too,
what
where
about
it's
slavery?
like, well, no, I wasn't saying anything about that. It was more of just like, that was like appropriate when the Constitution
the
was
time.
formed. Yeah. And
But
like how often are these things like getting read through again?
But what are you talking about for El Salvador or America?
No, for America.
What amendment? The 13th?
I don't know exactly, but I'm just saying in the year 1776, slavery was legal. Or wasn't there like the 3/5 policy? What was that?
but the amendments are the changes. Like there's the Bill of Rights, which are the first 10, but then everything after that are the changes to the Constitution. So like the 13th Amendment got rid of slavery, so that should be in there.
No,
right.
Yeah,
so how often are amendments happening?
Right.
No, I think something happened in like the early 90s, and prior to that it was like 70, and then prior to that it was, I think, when they changed
so,
it.
Yeah,
they changed
like
it to 2 terms.
A couple times a century.
It's the 27th. When was that done?
So the most recent one had something to do with senators and whatnot. The one prior to, I forget the numbers, but the one prior to that has like the age of voting being 18, and I think the 25th is the 25th might be, okay, I'm getting them mixed up, but either the 24th or the 25th is restricting the term limits. It's like 23, 24, 25. That was after FDR ran for 4 terms. And the 25th Amendment is brought up a lot now because of Biden. I'm brain farting on what it is.
So the 27th, which is the last, 1992, so we're talking 30 years ago, and it was all about that Congress can't increase or decrease their salary until after the election of the House. Like something that I don't want to say has no minimal relevance, but it's not, doesn't feel like a game changer. But yeah, I mean, it just, I don't know. Not to go back to the age piece, I've talked about this a lot, like about how should there be driving tests like every 10 years to make sure you're still able to drive. And as you get older, it's the same like concept, right? Just how often should we be revisiting things?
I think that's a great question. From doing this research too about Bukele, I've realized that a lot of the Constitution for El Salvador and probably for the United States as well, and probably for other countries, is kind of written in an ambiguous tone where it's up for interpretation. Of like what you deem is like necessary, like for a certain situation. We could pull some actual evidence about that up, but that was like how he was able to get these people to essentially start up a riot when the legislation did not show up for that meeting. And it was because like if the people feel like the legislation is not doing things in like the interest of the people, they're allowed to do this. Just another eye opener there. Justin and Dean, do you guys think that the United States could implement similar policies when it comes to the crime and, let's say, the war on drugs?
The fact that go ahead, you go.
No, I was going to say, are you talking about in terms of like the power given to the police and the president?
No, more of in terms of decreasing overall crime and violence through whatever intervention is necessary.
Yeah. It was interesting when I was watching that video, Dom, to see like El Salvador was number 3 on most people incarcerated in U.S. was number 1.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was in per person or per capita,
per
right?
100,000 citizens.
Yeah, so like we're already so high. I thought one of the most interesting means of cutting off crime was the no communication to the people on the inside. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, it's like an easy win right there. Just you can't talk to anyone on the outside. And then it kind of limits any of those people who are in controls. It reminds me down of Shot Caller. You have the person inside just calling everything on the outside.
Yeah. Such a good movie.
A great movie.
Did you see that movie, Tyler?
No.
Nicholas Castle Woodrow.
Jamie Lannister. Do you know the movie that we're talking about?
No.
Oh, dude, fire.
What is it called? What's it called?
It's called Shot Caller. It's a crazy, just idea behind a movie, just because it's pretty relatable, we'll say.
But to answer your question, oh, wow, he looks jacked.
Oh, he gets jacked.
It got John Bernthal in it too.
To answer your question, Tom, I don't think the country is too divided for like major change like that to happen. So you're saying
I think there's too many people.
You're saying his approval rate was like 90. Do you guys know the highest approval rating in American history for a president?
Was it FDR at 80?
70.
No. And keep in mind, I think this has only been tracked for since 1930 something. So think from FDR till now, who has had the highest approval rating?
Oh, actually, I don't know.
Is it Jimmy Carter?
No. When I say it, you're gonna know. You're gonna be like, oh yeah, that was obvious.
Maybe
Obama?
Reagan.
No. Not overall approval rating, but the highest at
one time
the highest approval
Bill
rating.
Clinton.
No.
Oh.
Damn, we're kind of running out of guesses.
One of the Bushes? I don't know.
Eisenhower?
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh.
no, it was Bush after 9/11.
Oh, wow. Because
What
of the
was
swift action he took?
90%. So
they polled 8 people.
My point being, it was 10 days after 9/11, so everyone was like rah rah. Like that El Salvador you're saying is 90%. They're rah rah about getting rid of crime. I don't think the United States is at that point right now where people are that united on something.
Quick segue with 9/11. I met someone in the DR from Kansas City. He joined the military, and a month later, 9/11 happened. He's been deployed 3 times. He served 15 years. And he's like, I never in a million years thought I'd be that much time over there. And so he was telling me that the Air Force, they call them the air chairs because they never see combat. They have limited hours in flight time. So he suggests anyone who goes into the military, the best is the Air Force because they don't see any combat. He was giving it to me straight. He's like, the Marines are the grunts. He was just telling me line by line.
Sounds like a guy you should get on the podcast.
Yeah, we support our troops on this podcast.
No pot.
Yeah, no pot. But you guys know the show The Wire. Have you guys watched it?
I watched it with you when we were younger.
So it's about, drugs in Baltimore. And it takes it from different perspectives where, you're seeing it from the gang perspective, you're seeing it from police, you're seeing it from street cops, detectives, whatever. One of the police chiefs decides that he wants to cut down on crime in Baltimore. So what he does is he sections off places that have the highest amounts of crime and drug use, and he creates a zone that's free drug use. So you can openly shoot up there, heroin, not guns, and cops are there to patrol it. Just the only rule is that there's no violence. Which when I was reading about this, I thought about that. They called it Hamsterdam. It was
Didn't they try that in Oregon?
Where they legalized the drugs?
Yeah, but they don't have specific areas where people can do drugs in Oregon.
Oh, okay.
They just legalized it.
Yeah. They decriminalized it. And that'd be an interesting solution. And we see that in Vermont too. There's a pretty big drug population.
But Dom, is drug a direct correlation with crime? I guess there in El Salvador, it was homicides was the big, right? It was 15 a day. It was something absurd.
Right, but those are correlated with gangs.
Right, which you're saying have money from
probably
drugs.
Have some type of involvement in the drug trade. And I mean, I don't have stats for Vermont, but I feel like every shooting that I hear about is drug related.
Hmm.
You know, like normal civilians aren't catching strays. It's really just drug related. So, yeah, I don't know. You know, it's like Patrick Starr said, like we should move Bikini Bottom and
And
put
put
it
it over
somewhere
there.
else.
Push.
Burlington is the most dangerous place in Vermont, Tom.
Damn straight.
Well, it's most people.
No, I know.
I
There's
wonder,
there's some counties that are just zero crime.
like what? Addison,
Wardsboros,
all the boroughs.
yeah, Eden, Randolph, Braintree, Chelsea,
Braintree?
Orange,
Fuck are these?
Williamstown.
Yeah, it's because nobody lives there.
Yeah, I know. You said Madison. Addison is pretty low. Yeah,
Pretty close to me. That's like the county right below Chittenden, I think.
I'll give you the numbers, Tom.
Just going back to Bukele. I thought it was interesting. Hey, I thought it was interesting how he funded his local military. Like I saw some of those videos. Some of those weapons were no joke.
Yeah.
And here in recent years, there's been a push to defund the police, right? And it was just it's an interesting dichotomy, like where a country like that is putting so much into their domestic military and focusing on cleaning up right within, and that was a way to do it, was arming these people to be able to fight against gangs. So I can understand that, but what was it, 109 million?
The homicide rate?
No, how much did he invest?
Yeah,
109 million. Yeah, which is just basically military spending, which I'm sure is a lot for them. Isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things, like largely, but 100 million into military that I'm sure was defunded before. Wow. Yeah,
So
it was like 16 a day.
I thought this chart was funny because this is 2010 to 2018, and it completely just like drops off. This is like by month or whatever. But so from 2010 to 2018, there's a huge drop off. And then if you go, this is another chart, which is even more. Now this is 2018 to now.
Yeah. Jeez.
Damn.
So it drops even more to, I don't even know, like 1 or 2.
Yeah, and it seems like he is trying to get, some, and I mean the entire world is catching on, right? Like he's a major political figure now where he's in every news article, on every news site, he's speaking in the United States. And yeah, I'm curious to see what those relationships are going to look like in the next couple of years. It's kind of a big deal.
It's interesting how the U.S. is like somewhat against it. I guess just the dictatorship of it as a whole, but
I think it depends what party of the U.S.
Yeah. I mean, he was speaking at a Republican recently,
conservative, yeah.
Yeah, so makes sense. I mean, that's who is a little bit more aligned with some of his actions.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think his main one is like being tougher on crime, right? That seems to be the driving point. And Justin and I, we talked about this, how when the election comes up, most candidates have like one primary platform that they're running off of, and whatever is important in the United States at that time, that candidate typically wins, whether it's climate change or military budget or school shootings or like whatever it may be.
Yeah. I was talking to someone recently about this, about like local politics. Like, if you can fix my pothole outside, I'm going to vote for you, right? Like, it's these, if you could just solve one thing for me as the voter, usually like that's all it takes, which is crazy, right? But to your point, if you find the big fish, right, that affects everyone,
Right.
That's when you can really start to, get people behind you.
Get traction, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple other things that we could bring up, but does anybody have any other things they want to talk about Bukele or anything that's on their mind?
No, we should add some like in the notes. We should have just like a thought corner at the end. Anything we thought about this week? I didn't think much this week because I was off. I thought about how Justin's quote unquote work trip was a complete farce, and he was at the beach and bars the entire time.
That was
On, like, a
for
boat.
6 hours. That's it.
Okay.
What
I
about a
see-
little shout out to Dr. Dom Wellness LLC getting up and running?
Can that be
You're a small business owner.
I'm an SBO. Dude, there's a lot that goes into that I have no idea if I'm doing it right.
Oh, dude, I'm pretty sure I did most of it wrong. I would never tell Brett
Dude,
that.
This paperwork.
I just was
It's
like, take my signature.
Yeah, I had to get notarized on Friday, and he's like, "Are you aware of the documents that you're signing?" I was like, "Yes."
I think. I don't know.
Dude, I fucked up one thing where
yours is very different though, where like than mine, where like I was more trying to like protect our name more than anything. You were like actually doing it as like a funneling of business.
Yeah. But when I was filing for it, and Tyler, what address do you have on file for your LLC?
It's this house.
That's like public record though.
Dude, you type in your dad's name 90. Like I'm not gonna say the address, but you type in your dad's name, the address comes up. It's all public record.
It's fucked. But
no, it's dude. I can find out what party your dad is. Remember when I did that to all of our friends? I found like what party all of our friends were registered to.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
screenshot it and send it. Yeah, and it has their address on it too. You just need to know their birthday.
Didn't know Pat's dad was gay.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to put my apartment as my address, so I can't use a PO box for an address in Vermont. So I needed to get what's called a virtual address.
Yeah.
So I did that, but I wasn't like, it wasn't clear of like what the address actually was. So I kind of fucked up the address when filing for the LLC. And it's a pain in the ass to change a business address or mailing address on the LLC. So I don't think it's, so what I did was I put the address of where this virtual address is that's in a Staples, but I didn't give the mailbox number for it. So I'm like, fuck. But now when I apply for my EIN number, I get to kind of do it over, and you can put like a mailing address on there. And I think I'm going to put my apartment mailing address on the EIN file.
Yeah,
so
you should do that.
All the mail's going to get funneled to here.
Yeah, and then you can open up a bank account probably after you get the EIN, right?
Yeah, so that's been challenging too because some banks don't accept virtual addresses, so pain in the ass.
What bank do you have right now?
For like a regular bank?
Yeah, for like your checking account.
I have Bank of America, but they require a $5,000 minimum to get the fee waived. And there's a bank that my friend Alyssa uses called Blue Vine, which you can get like 4% interest rate, which I was trying to do, but they said that they don't do virtual accounts. Could just lie though.
Could just lie.
Bob is not going to be happy with me. I've been making his life very confusing these past few weeks.
Who's this? Your accountant?
Yeah.
I'm going to a new one, Dom.
He doesn't know shit though.
I'm going to a new one.
He always like makes me feel like a dumbass. And
why didn't
he's
you
like,
send me this? It's like, how much is
or
it
it's just like, you're not going to get any tax benefits from this. I was like, that's not the point, Bob. Just fucking do
Try
it.
to cover my asses.
Bob. Yeah, me and Dad talk about how just Bob makes you feel like a dumbass.
Yeah, I got a new accountant. We're meeting them on Tuesday.
That's good. I
Young
wish
guy.
one of our friends was an accountant. That'd be nice.
Friend that's an accountant.
That's all right. I'll let you guys know how it goes with this EIN number. All right. Well,
did you put yourself as CEO?
Owner.
CEO.
Don't you forget.
Dude, they're asking me all these questions, and they're just like, yes, no, yes. It's really just like a fumble through. Luckily, I had like Alyssa and then my friend Rachel, who was on a couple weeks ago. She has her LLC, and she told me about this virtual address, so thankfully I have them to rely on. Chris is kind of useless in this sense. He's just like, I don't know. I just did it.
I just did it also. Like I will eventually, if our thing grows, I'd have to like figure
Revamp
everything
it a little
out.
bit.
Yeah, make
I would
sure
have
we're
to,
clean.
yeah, I'd have to like actually like do it. Like you're
I
supposed
know.
to like you're supposed to put yourself in the newspaper for X amount of days to like announce that you've been created.
What?
Yeah, stupid. I didn't do
Also,
that.
like, did you know like the registered agent portion?
I don't remember.
So,
Nope.
did you file the LLC yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, like through the Secretary of State website?
Yep.
Yeah, so you have to get what's called a registered agent, which is basically someone who's in charge of like your mail and like taxes and stuff like that. And if somebody were to sue you, you're kind of doing that stuff. There are companies that you can pay to be a registered agent,
Mm.
but I'm my own registered agent, and I'm assuming
I
you're your
definitely just
own
did myself.
registered agent.
Yeah, I just definitely did my own because I'm not like no one's gonna sue me. There's nothing that I'm doing.
We're all just the
That-
blind leading the blind.
Yeah, pretty much. If we were doing an actual business, then yeah, we would have set it up. But again, I have like trademarking stuff is even more difficult. Like, so I just did this as like a
Test run.
way of trade, like a way of in some sense trademarking it.
Yeah.
Like now there's a date to the name and everything like that. So God forbid
Right.
someone tried to like go and trademark my name or image, like which no one will. People have impersonated us on Twitter, but that's about it. I could be like, here's the filing of me like actually forming this.
Mm-hmm. Pretty soon, I'm gonna have you help me create a website, Tyler. Dr. Don Wellness. This thing is growing.
I mean, you're not yours is not just writing a blog though. Yeah. Does Chris have a website?
Yeah, it's not very well done, in my opinion. But I mean, it obviously gets the job done. It's more of just like a funnel to like his other stuff.
Is it cookingwithchris.com?
I would imagine. It's a good
Let's
place
find
to
out. If he
start.
doesn't have that, that would suck.
We should just take it. Sell
Ooh,
it.
I don't know if he does.
Well, he kind of got fucked because like he has like multiple O's in cooking. Because cook with Chris is a pretty common thing.
I'm Chris. I cook YouTube and TikTok. This can't be him. Yeah, if you don't have like the actual name, that's a pain in the ass. Let's see.
I have my address
he's got
for it.
cookingwithchris.cdr.co. Yeah, he's got like a
.co. Oh, is that
Yeah.
company?
I don't know actually. His website's bothering me. Too much scrolling. Way too much scrolling.
I know, too much scrolling. Yeah. I played poker last night and I won.
Because I wasn't
Did I
there.
tell you, Dom? I turned 100 into 350 at the casino.
On your work trip?
playing roulette.
Wait, Dom, when are you up?
Up for what?
That wedding.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
It's coming up. The
It's,
15th, maybe.
It's St. Patrick's Day weekend.
Yeah, 3/16.
Oh, it's that
I
weekend?
I have to send you pictures now of the suits.
Yeah, that weekend.
Are you going that, Justin?
No,
No,
Dom's gonna try
stealing
to borrow
my
one of my suits.
You fucking cheap bastard.
Hopefully it suits me. No, I'd buy my own. There's just nowhere to buy them up here.
I don't believe
want,
that.
dude. Like the best is fucking J.C. Penney and Kohl's,
That's what I have.
and it shows.
Yeah, I mean,
Whoa!
it gets the job done. I've had the same.
I have a Kohl's suit, but I want like a nicer one, and
Yeah,
I want to
I
go
get
to
that.
Macy's really to get one.
but I went to Macy's. You're downing Macy's?
No, Macy's is fine, but there is
Okay.
no Macy's here.
Ooh, I just put my finger in hot wax.
Okay.
I was doing a candle. I've had the same suit for
Were you
7.
fingering the candle or something?
I just wanted to play with it. I put it out a while ago, and I thought it was like hard, but it's still soft.
Heyo.
That's what she said. All right, I have to log off.
You can't log off. Can't log
Wait,
off.
some funny shit happened last night at my poker game. This lady like just comes and knocks on the door, and we weren't like being that loud. It was like 10:30. It wasn't like too
Mhm.
crazy, but
Mhm.
she's like very confrontational. She's like, "Who the fuck lives here?" And it was my friend and his girlfriend that lives there, and she was like, "I'm gonna call the fucking cops on you guys because you guys called the cops on me." And apparently there's like some hostility between them two of them where they live directly above them and they have two small kids. So the kids are just like constantly like running around.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's like accusations of child abuse, but they just hear a lot of screaming going on, we'll say. But my friends were just like, we've never called the cops. They're like, what are we even going to call the cops on? Your kids are just running around. That's so ridiculous. But she was not believing them. So she leaves and she comes back with like her boyfriend or something. But we have like 7 like dudes just like all playing poker. So we all just like go out. Yeah, she didn't come back. But
Nothing shook out.
Like, damn. Yeah, she was like the definition of like Vermont white trash.
Karen.
No, she was like younger, mid 30s.
Karen in training. Bye.
Bye.
Wait, we gotta